Hey YouTube, this is Jeff at Darkmoon Metals, and in today's video we're going to be talking about what's involved in preparing your metal work surface prior to welding. The first air tool we're going to talk about is the pencil grinder. Now this is really good for small and tight areas, and it has a lot more power than your off-the-shelf Dremel. It can take a lot of the attachments that the Dremel has. You might need a collet for the smaller shafts, but this will use Dremel components. Now, I really like this simply because it is very lightweight. I can get just about anywhere I need to go, but it is very small and it would take a long time to clean up a substantial work area. The next step up would be the full-size die grinder. Now this one I have set up with a wire wheel, and the wire wheel is my preference when it comes to cleaning materials for the welding process. I use this on everything except aluminum. The wire wheel, this does spin fast enough, and if your wire wheel is too stiff, you can actually gouge and scratch the aluminum. For that I use just regular sanding discs. But this is an all-around great tool, and I love it for using on objects that have a lot of paint. Maybe somebody painted something with a latex base or an oil-based paint, and you can really get in there and remove that. And you don't have to worry about a stone wheel clogging up or a sandpaper wheel clogging up where they become literally useless in just a matter of moments. It's very economical and it's very user-friendly, and I would recommend this to just about anybody who's doing welding. Alright guys, now this is a cutoff grinder. It looks a lot similar to the die grinder, but it's different in one key area, and that's how the consumable is attached to the tool. The die grinder has a chuck system that uses two wrenches to loosen and tighten an internal chuck that holds the shaft of the consumable into the tool. The cutoff grinder has an Allen head. Now the Allen head, you tighten it or loosen it to take the cutting disc on or off, and it holds in place, and that allows you to put different types and different thicknesses of cutoff wheels on the tool. Now I have two of them on the table here, and there's a reason I do keep two of them. And that's at the end of the tool. These are my standard air compressor fittings, but on this one I have a dial speed control that allows how much air I have flowing through the tool, and it controls the maximum revolution of the grinding disc. This one is another standard die grinder. It's just a lot shorter and more compact, so I can get it into tighter areas. This comes in really handy, especially when I was doing the ammo can stove. Alright YouTube, last but not least, you have my angle grinder. Now the angle grinder is the same exact thing as a regular die grinder. The only difference is the tool head is on a 90 degrees from your hand. And that can just be a lot more comfortable when you're grinding flat surfaces or you're trying to get into corners and things like that. Now this one's set up to have a disposable 3M conditioning disc that just kind of pops in and twists and pops out. That's what this collar is for, and that's pretty much all I use it for. It's just conditioning or polishing metal. But it is another option for you. If you guys don't have an air compressor, you can always use a cordless drill. Anything with a round shank can be put inside the drill truck and used just as it would be in an air tool. The only difference is this is going to be a lot more cumbersome, and it's not going to let you get into the really tight areas. But in a pinch, it's a very good option. Now the other electric options also include belt sanders, palm sanders, Dremel tools, things along that line. Now anything that can take paint off of a metal surface or clean rust is a huge step forward to conditioning your metal and getting it ready for welding. If you are doing a lot of welding, you're going to want to get yourself a good angle grinder. Now this is a 4.5 inch model, and there are a lot of these guys available on the markets. There are a ton of different companies to put them out. I chose DeWalt simply because, hey, I trust the name and I like buying good tools, but I'm not knocking things like Makita or anybody like that because they make a lot of good stuff too. Now there are a lot of different versions. DeWalt makes, I think, 3 or 4 different models of the 4.5 inch grinder. Now this one has the trigger control in the back. There are some that have the flap triggers that are right up here, right under the body. Those typically don't have as many amps as the one with the trigger in the back. If you look at the packages, you'll find that there's a big difference in the amount of power these things can put out. Now this particular one is rated for 13 amps, so that's more powerful than some 7-inch disc grinders that are out there. Now this is the one that I choose, and I'm going to show you side by side what this will do versus the air tools. Now what I have here is a thin piece of sheet metal with OD green paint on it. This is the cutout of the door that I had left over, and this is really, really good paint. I mean, this is gone through a ton of different quality control procedures. It is really designed to stick to the metal. Now I'm going to be using the wire wheel, the cutoff disc, and my 4.5-inch grinder with a sanding flap disc side by side, just to show you the difference between what these different tools can do. Before I get started though, I want to remind everybody, please wear your safety glasses, and if you have to or you feel the need to, wear hearing protection. It's not going to kill you. You can use these, you can use the little earbuds, but please just protect yourselves and read your owner's manual before you use any kind of a power tool whatsoever. Make sure you're familiar with it, and if you have any questions about how to use it or its functions, you can always ask the store or the location you bought it from. Okay, YouTube, I have the 3 different samples set up side by side, and hopefully you can get a pretty good idea of what I'm trying to talk about here. Now, using an abrasive wheel, whether it's designed for cutting or grinding, you are going to be removing a little bit of the surface material as you're grinding. You're not just going to be taking away paint or rust, you're literally going to be removing a small layer of metal. Now, the wire wheel, if I had to clean this up and I didn't want any scratch marks or anything at all, that's what I would lean towards, because this will almost give you something that looks like a polished finish if you keep at it long enough. Now, this took me about a minute just to grind this little area down with the wire wheel, just because this paint is so thick. This I did in about 10 seconds with the grinder, and it's a heck of a lot more aggressive. The sanding disc, it took a little while to get through the initial paint, but once I hit bare metal, it went to town, and it was able to clear off an area 3 times the size of what the wire wheel could do. So it's a trade-off. If you really want to keep your metal in pristine condition, it is going to take you a lot longer to get your piece ready for welding. If you're just, tacking together something that's, a project or something out on a farm, and you don't care what the surface of the metal looks like, it's not a showpiece, you can go to town with stone wheels or whatever you want, get your metal clean, and get your job done. Here's another example of the point I'm trying to make. This is 4.5-inch channel iron. Now this is the rust and orange paint that was on it from the scrapyard. And I had quite a bit of this. I needed it for a project. Now this is a piece that I had cut off that was a little bit extra. And I want to show you the difference between the different types of sanding discs and grinding discs that you can get for the 4.5-inch or 7-inch grinders. Now, like I said, this is as it was right out of the scrapyard. This is after about 15 minutes of trying to clean the surface material with a flap wheel. And this is what's left of the flap wheel. You can see that it took a lot of the surface material off the flap wheel, and it really cut its life in half. I mean, there's probably 50% left on this. That's what it looks like new in the package. So this right here is not a very economical option if you want to clean this, and it didn't even really do a good job. There are still a lot of surface pits in the material. There's still a lot of rust. I can even see paint in some of the divots of this steel. So that's what happened when I used just the flap wheel. Now this This took almost no time at all. It was under 2 minutes, and I was able to get this down to very shiny steel in, you know, like I said, a very short amount of time. And this was done with a stone grinding wheel. Now, both of these grinding wheels are made by the same company, and I chose this particular company because if you guys are out there and you want to learn, I picked these up at Walmart. Walmart carries these in stock. I'm not really a big fan of big box stores, but they're really inexpensive, and if you guys want to learn, you don't have a good welding supplier, you can use them. And just to give you an idea of the condition of the stone wheel, you can just start to see a little bit of the initial threads, and the rest of the wheel is in pristine condition after doing almost 3 times the amount of work of what the sanding disc could do. Alright guys, here's another piece of that 4.5-inch channel iron. Now, my one main work surface in the garage happens to be my welding table. There's one problem when it comes to using something that's 13 amps, something that's got a lot of kick behind it, trying to grind metal on a metal surface. And it's pretty self-explanatory. The piece wants to walk right across your bench. Now, I can put this in a vise, but then I'd be grinding way up here, and it's more comfortable for me just to grind at waist level as it is for most people. Having to hold your grinder up in the air while you're trying to grind a piece, it causes fatigue and all sorts of other stuff. So I want to offer you a little bit of a solution. This, I picked this up at Sears. This is actually toolbox liner, drawer liner. And what it's designed to do is as you open and close your drawer, it won't let your wrenches and screwdrivers and things slide around, and it keeps them pretty stationary inside of the box. And it keeps your tools more organized. If you have a piece of this, you can even get those the placemats that are made out of the same like rubberized material. This stuff's great. You take it and you put it on your bench. You put the metal you want to grind on top of it, and I don't care how powerful your grinder is, you're not going to move it much. Okay, YouTube, I hope I gave you a basic idea of some of the things that you have access to as far as tools and consumables. Now, if you have any other questions or would like to see something up close and in more detail, please leave me a comment or personal message. I'll be more than happy to make a video response and show you what you're looking for. Now, I know that you don't have to get metal perfectly clean for every welding application. If you're using, let's say, stick and you're doing a whip and pause, that can power through a lot of different grime and rust. The motion actually cleans before you put your weld down, and it's very effective on things like farm equipment or outdoors, structural. It's not as critical that you have your components clean. But if you're doing something like stainless steel TIG welding, or you're doing regular mild steel TIG welding, and you want to have a really good clean surface for the TIG process because it's not as forgiving as 6010s today. Now, 90% of what you will do as a welder, whether or not you want to become a professional or just a hobbyist, 90% is going to be cleaning your material, doing a fit up on your material, making sure everything is just right and clamped down and tacked before you begin any welding at all. In fact, a professional welder only spends about 10% of his time welding in his shop. So, with that in mind, if you do a good job, you take your time and you get your pieces set up just right, you'll find that your overall work and welding experience will be much more enjoyable. So that's something to think about. But this is Jeff from Darkmoon Metals, and I'm going to end the video here. But for now, have a good holiday, whatever tradition you happen to celebrate, and I'll see you again soon. Happy welding.